Hello, I'm Steve Zwick, and welcome to this Climate Quickie coming to you from year-end climate talks in Glasgow, Scotland. I'm covering these talks for Ecosystem Marketplace, and the announcements have been coming too fast and furious for me to produce complete episodes of Bionic Planet for each one. I do have a few in the works, and they'll appear alongside articles on Ecosystem Marketplace, but I also thought I'd drop a few of these Climate Quickies as interesting stories materialize. This one looks at the United Nations World Tourism Organization, or UNWTO. That's the UN's specialized agency charged with promoting sustainable tourism. Today it unveiled the Glasgow Declaration for Climate Action in Tourism at the 26th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or COP26, here in Glasgow. Companies and countries that signed the declaration agreed to cut their emissions in half by 2030 and achieve net zero emissions by 2050, with all residual emissions being absorbed through ecological restoration by 2050 at the latest. More than 300 stakeholders have signed the declaration, including the World Travel and Tourism Council, the WTTC, which represents more than 300 companies responsible for more than 70% of global tourism. I had lunch today with UNWTO Executive Director Zoritsa Urosevic, who told me she envisions a future where the tourism sector becomes a force for ecological restoration, in part to achieve net zero obligations, but also because the tourism sector needs nature.
The World Tourism Organization is very committed to decarbonize tourism globally, and under the leadership of the Secretary General Zora Pololikashvili, we just launched the Glasgow Declaration, where we have more than 300 signatories. Countries such as Panama, who are a net zero country, are one of the leadings, and then we have other countries, and we have big business lobbies such as the World Tourism and Travel Council with more than 300 businesses, but which represent 70% of tourism in all over the world. Right. So really a massive commitment which we need to pursue further in having more countries, more companies, and the most important to have really small companies committed, for which we are going to provide support and help to draw plans so that they can really measure, decarbonize, and regenerate not only on their operations, but as well in the places where they are. Because tourism depends on nature and on people. And nature is where we are going to really have the nature-based solutions.
This is a net zero, so this would be reducing, I assume, and also offsetting, right? There'll be a combination. Okay.
Exactly. The commitment is to not only reduce the footprint by changing business as usual operations, but as well offsetting by compensating and maybe the creation of new carbon sinks. Blue carbon, for example, has a much bigger capacity to sequestration than green carbon, like forests and mountains.
Right. So interesting to see that peatlands and wetlands and mangroves are finally, they've been ignored for so long, and now everyone's paying attention to them.
This is going to become maybe the new tourism attraction, because it's going to have a value that is more than just like the beach. Yeah,
I remember the COP Cancun. We were all staying in these fancy hotels on the beach, but they all were mangroves like a few decades earlier.
And then it's going to become really a habit to have coral farms, in which maybe tourists, before we were just caring about the turtles coming and nesting on the beach. It is very beautiful. Maybe we go one step further and coral farms, planting, tourists involved in creating, regenerating. And this is the part on regeneration, which is very important.
So that's interesting. So you're talking about not just offsetting impacts, but actually turning tourism into a regeneration activity.
Absolutely.
Wow, okay.
That's the ambition.
Yeah.
We're not there, and we need your help, and we need the help of everyone.
And that is the question. How do we get there, and how can I help you? And so what are the concrete steps that you've lined out ahead? I guess the question is, what kind of time frame do you have?
The Glasgow Declaration has a framework of 12 months where when you are a signatory, you commit to provide a plan. What is your plan? So that you have a baseline, and then in the coming years, you measure progress, and then of course you collaborate and you get support to move forward.
When you say cut in half, do you mean absolute reductions and then offsetting on top of that to be net zero? Is that, or to be carbon neutral?
Actually, this is where we need the regeneration part.
So the goal is to reduce emissions by reducing, and then the regeneration will offset that, so that you will be
Creating carbon sink.
Right.
Exactly.
When do you think the carbon neutral target will be achieved? Will that be before 2050?
Carbon neutral is a very complex scenario because first the country has to be committed, the companies need to be committed, and we need like innovative financing for that. That's going to be the most critical aspect. We are currently building a new model on innovative financing, Net Zero Tourism Fund, and we will be even calling the tourists to contribute to that fund. So matching tourist contribution will be matched by industry contribution.
One of the problems with blue carbon is that the standards are just now emerging. Are you engaging any of the standard settings at the next
It's a
step?
wild market.
Yeah.
It's a wild market which is going to not to take long to be structured, and we are part of the conversation.
UNWTO Executive Director Zoritsa Urosevic with this Climate Quickie. I'll be popping these out here and there as these talks continue, but I've also got 3 complete episodes in the works. That's all for now. Until next time, I'm Steve Zwick in Glasgow. Thanks for checking in.